So you've obviously seen Dublin at close quarters over a number of years, and watching how they're going through the Leinster Championship this year. They are in the final the next day out, but having beaten Wexford, I think it was 15 points to 7, and then seeing off Meath by 6 points. But it was a very close game going. Like, I think it was down to 3 points going into injury time. I kind of had my
Yeah.
stats done here if I have them to hand. Do you see? Let me just see the final score there. Yeah, it was 216 to 113, but it was 213 to 113. Just about going into injury time. And like you said, they held the ball for about 4 minutes. They choked the life out of Meath at the very end. But what are you seeing from Dublin this year? Missing a lot of players. Cluxton isn't there. Kevin McManaman's with the Olympic team. A few other lads have stepped away. No McCaffrey, no Paul Mannion. Eric Lowndes is gone. A few injuries. So what are you thinking with Dublin?
Yeah, I suppose the big thing that going into any game is opposition kickouts, your own kickouts, and then matchups. Probably with Cluxton for years, it was like one of those things: do you press up high, do you go zonal, do you go man on man? Always seem to find a way out. The other way was the way the Dublin forwards pressed the opposition's kickouts. And that was something that there's a lot of joy in. But I think the area that they seem to be struggling with, because of that depth, isn't as the same quality as before. Is the matchups, especially defensively. They don't have the same caliber of man markers, and ideally what Dublin were trying to do against Meath was free up the likes of Cooper to get back as a sweeper, or probably wouldn't even say a sweeper. He was more so trying to double up and help those inside defenders. And I think when the likes of Mayo or Kerry come up against Dublin, this is going to be a lot more interesting in getting those matchups right, because the likes of Philly McMahon or Fitzsimons or Davy Byrne, they're probably your three really tight man markers. Philly probably hasn't been playing full games, but he's always one of those coming on. But I don't think they probably have that caliber of matchups that they had in the past. And then on the other side, Fenton, Kilkenny and Connor, the three players that make Dublin tick. Without doubt, those three players, they were the ones that probably made Dublin tick against Meath to get over the line. Scully probably had an off day for himself. He has been one in the past. But I think those three guys, any team playing Dublin, if you get your matchups right with them and try and nullify them in some shape or form, I think in the past what was happening was, right, Fenton will get a matchup there, Kilkenny will get a matchup there, and Con. But then these other guys like Rock probably contributed a little bit more from play than Freeze in the past. And then you have other guys, Howard, coming into the play, and then you have half backs. Merchant, McDaid coming and getting on score lines. And I think Scully is a massive player that has probably gone unnoticed, or his fantasy football points have gone up the last number of years, because he's become one of Dublin's key players. When Kilkenny's been tagged, he seems to be the one to almost be the orchestrator, that ball carrier or quarterback. So look, in the past, when you put out a few fires against Dublin, another one starts somewhere else, and you can't just seem to nullify them enough. Whereas this year, you're kind of looking, I'm not sure where the next player, the next person is going to come from. I hope I'm right, but I think it's one of those things that they're learning and being tested a little bit more. And you kind of, if Dublin were ever going to be caught in the hop, I think it's probably a semi-final rather than a final, and catching them by a team that they might have just maybe taken for granted a little bit, or brought something different to the table, and that's what you're hoping with Mayo or a Kerry or even a Monaghan or Tyrone, that you kind of have to bring something different to the table against Dublin, because the last number of years you go try and nullify them and sit back. They'll keep possession and they'll drain the life out of you and get you running over and back, up and down, even the way they've done it against Meath. And that's not the first time they've done it. They can mix it by running at you quickly, or they can keep possession if you set up defensively. So it's up to teams to try and counteract that, and obviously get out in front of Dublin and get them chasing you is the ideal way. But when was the last time they've been in a position like that?
Yeah, do you give Kildare much chance going into this game? 4 years ago, they gave a decent performance in Leinster final, and I spoke with Daniel Flynn not so long ago, and he says he still has days where he's annoyed over that goal chance when he was 1-on-1 with Cluxton, and he would have fancied him to bury it. But they beat Westmeath the last day, 214 to 18 points. I don't think too many people are giving him a chance, but like if you look at Dublin in the league against Kerry, massive fade out in the second half, steadied the ship against Meath, but massive fade out for long parts of the second half. And I wonder, like James McCarthy, who's been arguably the best player of the last decade, he's 31 now, a lot of miles and a lot of injuries on the clock there. Some of the key men no longer there. I just don't see as many lads punching through the middle the way Gavin White is for Kerry at the moment, the way McCaffrey should be. So I just like, do you give any hope to Kildare going into that game?
Look, at probably I'm probably being harsh in the sense talking about Dublin the whole time on Kildare, but I think that's the reality of it where Dublin are at, especially in Leinster. I suppose the fact that there's been a couple of tight games with Wexford and Meath, it's been a lot tighter than in previous years that were kind of writing off Kildare. I think Kildare will pose problems for Dublin in certain areas, but I just probably the firepower there up front. I still think Dublin probably have those matchups. Flynn will definitely cause problems, but Dublin know that, and there'll be a second man back there the whole time to help out if there's high ball in or that on him. And it's Neil Flynn as well. I think he was phenomenal against Westmeath. I don't know what he kicked. Was it 7 or 8 points between frees and a couple from play? But I think Kildare kicked a lot of free points from frees. I don't think they'll get the same amount of frees against Dublin, because you run at a Dublin team, they're so strong in the tackle, and it's the same with Mayo. Like, how many frees did Galway kick? The top teams don't give away those fouls, those scoreable fouls. If you're fouling a player in a scoreable position, a lot of the time it's to prevent a goal chance. The likes of Mayo and Kerry and Dublin, when they're fouling, there's a reason for it, whereas they back themselves to 1-on-1, that they pressurise the man to kick it wide. So I think, look, Flynn, it'd be interesting to see with Feely and Owen Doyle whether they're going to be fit enough for the game. They both went off injured. I'd say Feely would probably be good to go. Looked like more of a bang to the knee, whereas Owen Doyle looked like he was on crutches after the game. So whether he done a muscle injury, 2 weeks is going to be tight going, and especially when you come up against the Dubs, if you're not 100%, they'll definitely expose that.
Join the Our Game Supporters Club
leader
at
in that
Patreon
defence
for
for
€5
Kildare
per
for the
month
last
to
number of
get
years,
audio
and
podcasts
you
of the
really
Hurling and
want
Football
him
Show
trying to
and much more
marshal that
exclusive
defence.
material.